Hi, everyone. It is Wednesday, December 18th. You're listening to the Mo News Podcast. I am Jill Wagner. This is the place where we bring you just the facts. We read all the news and read between the lines so you don't have to. As you could tell, it's just me today. Moshe is in D.C. at the White House holiday party, and I am happily here holding down the fort, getting to spend a little time with you guys today. So let's get to the news. Police in Madison, Wisconsin say they're still trying to figure out a motive for Monday's school shooting, what we know about the suspect, and the type of gun she used. To the murder of UnitedHealthcare CEO, the Manhattan DA took a rare move of charging the suspect, Luigi Mangione, with first-degree murder as an act of terrorism. What exactly that means. Plus, the results of a shocking new poll on how many young Americans think that the shooting of that healthcare CEO is acceptable. To politics, Democrats choose 74-year-old Jerry Connolly over AOC for a key committee role. Overseas, Russia is vowing to get back at Ukraine over the killing of a top Russian general in Moscow, how Ukraine pulled it off. And in Syria, dictator Bashar al-Assad's fall upends the Middle East's largest drug empire. I'll explain. To tech news, Apple's developing foldable iPhones. And a potential major merger in the car industry, which automakers want to join forces. The Bluey creators announce a full-length movie for the beloved series. And I'll end with On This Day in History. Okay, so let's start with what we're learning about the Madison, Wisconsin school shooting on Monday. Police say they're still trying to figure out why a 15-year-old female student at a private Christian school in Madison opened fire on her fellow classmates, teachers, and then ultimately killed herself. As we reported yesterday, police say that student, Natalie Rupno, who also went by the name Samantha, shot and killed another teenage student and a teacher and injured 6 others. She opened fire inside a classroom during a study hall that was filled with students from all different grades. Police not releasing the names of the victims just yet. Madison Chief of Police Sean Barnes said investigators are looking at Rupno's social media presence. They're also trying to figure out if she was bullied and if that maybe influenced her actions. Here is the police chief at a Tuesday press conference saying that there are always signs of a school shooting before it occurred, and they're asking anyone who knew the shooter and had insight about her feelings to call them.
Identifying a motive is our top priority. But at this time, it appears that the motive was a combination of factors. Again, we cannot share that information at this time because we do not want to jeopardize the investigation and those who are currently cooperating with us.
Asked by reporters if the shooter targeted any of the victims specifically, Barnes said, quote, "Everyone was targeted in this incident. Everyone was put in equal danger." The police chief also corrected some information he'd released earlier when he said a second grade student was the one who called 911 to report the shooting. In fact, it was a second grade teacher. He apologized for the mistake. Police also say there is a letter circulating on social media, a so-called manifesto, but they haven't confirmed whether or not it is authentic. They do say there has been some misinformation circulating online as well. As for the gun used in the shooting, it appears to be a 9mm pistol. It isn't clear how the shooter got a hold of the gun. If you remember, in recent years, the parents of teenage school shooters in Oxford, Michigan, and also in Georgia have faced charges for allegedly recklessly giving their kids access to firearms, for allegedly recklessly giving their child access to a firearm despite concerns about their mental health. At this point, the Madison police chief says that Rupno's family is cooperating with the investigation. There are also photos of Rupno circulating online. In one photo shared on her father's Facebook page, you could see her at a gun range, and she's aiming at a clay pigeon with a shotgun. So that is not the gun that she allegedly used in Monday's school shooting. Also want to mention many schools in the area were closed on Tuesday because of false threats or squatting. None of those threats, though, have resulted in violence. Okay, now to another shooting. This one, the murder of UnitedHealthcare CEO Brian Thompson. The alleged killer, Luigi Mangione, has now been indicted on murder as an act of terrorism and other charges in that fatal shooting in Midtown Manhattan earlier this month. Mangione was already charged with murder for that December 4th killing of Thompson, but the terror allegation is new. Under New York law, that charge could be brought when an alleged crime is, quote, intended to intimidate or coerce a civilian population, influence the policies of a unit of government by intimidation or coercion, and affect the conduct of a unit of government by murder, assassination, or kidnapping. Here is Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg talking about the charges at a press conference on Tuesday.
This was a frightening, well-planned, targeted murder that was intended to cause shock and attention and intimidation. It occurred in one of the most bustling parts of our city, threatening the safety of local residents and tourists alike, commuters and business people just starting out on their day.
This is pretty rare to have first-degree murder charges in New York. Bragg said the charge is usually reserved for people who kill police officers, serial killers, and those charged, like in this case, with terrorism. Bragg said Mangione waited for Thompson for about an hour before shooting and killing him as he walked to a Manhattan hotel where UnitedHealthcare was holding an investor conference. Mangione, by the way, is still in Pennsylvania. He was recently spotted there by an employee at a local McDonald's. He's scheduled to appear in a Pennsylvania courtroom tomorrow for an extradition hearing to determine when he may return to New York City to face murder and other charges. Meanwhile, we're also learning that the FBI spoke to Mangione's mom the night before her son was arrested. She said that the images of the person of interest bore a resemblance to her son, but she couldn't know for sure if it was him. According to CBS News, she did tell law enforcement that the shooting was something that he possibly could have done. The family had filed a missing persons report for Mangione earlier in the month. I also want to mention the results of a new poll that show 41% of adults under the age of 30 consider the killing of UnitedHealthcare CEO Brian Thompson acceptable. That is actually more than 40% in that demographic who consider it unacceptable. The survey is from Emerson College Polling. It found 68% of all respondents found the actions of the person who shot and killed Thompson to be unacceptable. But a startling 24% of those aged 18 to 29 found it somewhat acceptable, and 17% in that age group found it completely acceptable. The number was higher amongst Democrats than Republicans. The executive director of Emerson College Polling said the overall findings underscore, quote, shifting societal attitudes among the youngest electorate and within party lines. Okay, time for the speed read, starting with politics from Axios. House Democrats on Tuesday elected 74-year-old Representative Jerry Connolly, a Democrat from Virginia, as the ranking member of the House Oversight Committee. Connolly defeated 35-year-old Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, a Democrat from New York, withstanding a generational revolt that saw several of the Democrats' 70-year-old committee leaders pushed out of their roles. Ocasio-Cortez is one of the House Democrats' most high-profile members. She also lost a vote in the House Democratic Steering and Policy Committee Monday. Connolly defeated Ocasio-Cortez 131 to 84. He had the backing of several veteran lawmakers, including former Speaker Nancy Pelosi. Connolly hinged his case on experience and his political ability. AOC emphasized her far-reaching public platform, her ability to communicate, and her energetic support for colleagues in recent congressional elections. But one issue that she had to confront was her past support for primary challengers to incumbent House Democrats, which was a sore subject for many lawmakers. She was pressed on the issue and reportedly pledged not to do that in the future. And some lawmakers say they're disappointed with the results here. Representative Becca Balint, who's a Democrat from Vermont, said, I know Jerry will do a great job, but there is no substitute for having someone in that position that literally has millions of Americans following her on social media. She added, I think that the seniority issue in this building gets in the way. Our people back home, they don't care about seniority. Although many predict that AOC will be elevated to a leadership role in the not-so-distant future. Overseas, from the Washington Post, a top Russian military official, Lieutenant General Igor Kirilov, was killed in Moscow on Tuesday. Ukrainian officials have claimed responsibility, and they are calling it a special operation. Kirilov led Russia's nuclear, biological, and chemical defense forces since 2017. Ukraine's accused him of using chemical weapons against Ukrainian troops. He is the highest level Russian military officer to be killed in the war, which started in February of 2022. He is the highest level Russian military officer to be killed in the war, which is about to enter its third year. And the attack appears very thought out. He was reportedly targeted with an explosive device planted in a scooter near a residential building in southeastern Moscow. As he and his assistant walked into the building, the bomb that carried an explosive force equivalent to 300 grams of TNT was triggered remotely. Ukraine's domestic intelligence agency was behind the attack, and it comes just a day after the country published an investigation accusing Russia of deploying banned chemical weapons nearly 5,000 times under Kirillov's leadership since Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine. The Kremlin denied the report and again vows retaliation against Ukraine. Staying overseas, from the Wall Street Journal, the fall of Syria's Bashar al-Assad overturned the most profitable drug smuggling network in the Middle East. Captagon is a methamphetamine-like drug. It's been produced for years in Syrian labs and helped the Assad regime amass huge wealth and offset the impact of international sanctions. Hezbollah in Lebanon also profited from its trade. Days after they ousted Assad in a lightning offensive last week, rebels circulated videos from industrial-scale manufacturing and trafficking facilities inside government air bases and other sites that are affiliated with former top regime officials, like a car trading company in the Assad family's hometown and a former potato chips factory in Douma near the capital that is also believed to be affiliated with the ex-president's brother. Footage by rebels and journalists who filmed the sites showed thousands of Captagon pills hidden in fake fruit, ceramic mosaics, and electrical equipment. So this drug, used by everyone from taxi drivers and students working late hours to militia fighters. The Syrian-produced Captagon helped drive a demand for drugs across the Middle East, especially in Saudi Arabia, and did become a source of international tension between Syria and its neighbors. These disclosures provide evidence of what had long been alleged, that the Assad regime was the driving force behind an estimated $10 billion annual global trade in Captagon, which in recent years has become the drug of choice across the Middle East. Assad used the money to sustain his rule and reward loyalists. And on that note, also from the Wall Street Journal, while Assad's been granted political refuge in Russia, the rest of the world is searching for up to $12 billion in cash and assets that his family is believed to have stashed around the world. The family has built a broad network of investments, including an international real estate empire. Some purchases by the Assad family include prime real estate in Russia, boutique hotels in Vienna, and a private jet in Dubai. This is according to U.S. officials and researchers investigating the family fortunes. Both Bashar al-Assad and his father allegedly used relatives to hide wealth abroad. In 2022, the State Department released a report saying the businesses and assets connected to the Assads could be worth anywhere from $1 to $12 billion, and that the money often came from controlling state monopolies. And as I just mentioned, the drug dealing. Human rights groups are trying to recover the assets and return the money to the Syrian people, but it is not going to be easy. The U.S. hit the Assads with heavy sanctions during the civil war years, which forced them to hide their money outside the West and in tax havens that are often hard to penetrate. The U.S. has tried to investigate stashed wealth before, searching for billions hidden by dictators like Saddam Hussein in Iraq and Muammar Gaddafi in Libya. To tech news from Bloomberg, Apple is working on a foldable iPhone to be released in the next couple of years. While rivals like Samsung, Google, and Huawei have launched foldable phones, Apple has yet to enter the market. Foldable devices have not really taken off widely among Apple's competitors. They're only expected to make up about 1.5% of the total smartphone market in 2024. Part of the problem is that there are challenges with hinges, screen durability, and thickness, and that apparently has slowed progress. Analysts believe that Apple's foldable iPhone could arrive by 2026 at the earliest, once it meets Apple's design standards. Historically, new hardware designs have been key drivers for Apple's sales growth, so that could be behind Apple's latest push. Another bit of business news from CNBC, Japanese automakers Nissan and Honda reportedly plan to enter into negotiations for a merger to better compete in the changing global automotive industry. Honda and Nissan are considering operating under a holding company and could soon sign a memorandum of understanding. Eventually, they want to bring Mitsubishi under the holding company as well. The combined Nissan, Honda, and Mitsubishi enterprise would equate to more than 8 million vehicle sales every year, and it would place the company among the world's largest automakers, but still below fellow Japanese automaker Toyota and also German automaker Volkswagen. And finally, from The Hollywood Reporter, Bluey is heading to the silver screen. The smash hit Disney Plus animated series is getting its own feature film from the Walt Disney Company and BBC Studios. It's going to be written and directed by Bluey creator Joe Brumm. The film will, quote, continue the adventures of Bluey, a lovable, inexhaustible blue heeler dog who lives with her mom, dad, and her little sister Bingo. The film's expected to hit theaters in 2027 under the Disney banner and will stream on Disney Plus after its debut. If you don't know about Bluey, it has become a bona fide hit for Disney Plus, routinely ranking as one of the most streamed shows on the service. A longer form special called The Sign got more than 10 million viewers worldwide, with a handful of new episodes trickling out after. Created by Brum in his native Australia, the series quickly gained traction across the globe with kids and families charmed by the show's celebration of imagination and creativity, as well as its strong emotional core. We are huge Bluey fans in my house. My husband actually says that the show has made him a better father. And I get it because the show has such a nice way that the parents speak to the kids and they do really fun, imaginative games together. It's just such a good show. So I highly recommend, especially if you have kids, checking it out. All right, time for On This Day in History. On this day, December 18th, in 1892, Tchaikovsky's ballet The Nutcracker premiered in St. Petersburg, Russia. But it wasn't an immediate hit. It actually had some lukewarm reviews. Today, though, it is, of course, a beloved holiday classic around the world. On this day in 2019, former President Donald Trump was impeached for the first time by the U.S. House of Representatives, the third U.S. president to be impeached by the House over a phone call with Ukraine's President Vladimir Zelensky, where he allegedly sought help in the 2020 election. The Senate acquitted Trump on this and the other impeachment that he faced in January of 2021. On this day in 1966, How the Grinch Stole Christmas aired for the very first time on CBS. And in 1985, Steven Spielberg's The Color Purple premiered in theaters. If you remember, The Color Purple was remade last year. Oprah, who made her acting debut as Sophia in Spielberg's adaptation of Alice Walker's novel back in 1985, joined forces with Steven Spielberg, Quincy Jones, and Scott Sanders to bring The Color Purple musical to the big screen. All right, that's a wrap. Thanks for listening to this edition of the Mo News Podcast. If you like what you hear, please share this with your friends. It will help us grow. Follow us and subscribe so you don't miss an episode, and review us kindly in the App Store.